probably anticipated the question. How's Ryan Helinski looking out there?
I'll tell you what, he's looking pretty good. Like I said, you got to take into consideration this is only his 7th college practice. But he's grasping everything. He's doing a good job of understanding what we're trying to do every time he's in there, and does have good command of it. So he's doing a pretty good job right now.
Do you consider him the number 2 guy, maybe a co-number 2 guy? Where is he in the pecking order?
I still think we have a lot to look at before we even consider a pecking order. Right now, we're just trying to give as much of those guys the exact amount of reps. So now we have a good body of work of understanding who exactly did what with each group, because it kind of gets tough when you look at somebody working with the third team and the second team, then the first team. You know, we got different guys that he's going against also. So I think we just got a lot more information to gather before we can even get there.
And how about DeCarrion? How's he looking after a year in the program?
Yeah, he's looking a lot better. Just looks a lot more comfortable with everything that he's doing also. So, I mean, he's having a pretty good spring also. So we just got to keep doing a good job of giving those guys reps to see where it all shakes out.
What does Jake have to accomplish by the end of spring to fulfill what your expectations are of him?
The only thing he can worry about is just being better than he was the day before. You know, I mean, when you look at everybody, I could go through every player that we have, myself included as a coach, and just say, hey, man, these are a million different things that we got to get better at. But if we approach the day the right way and keep getting better, then I feel like he's working towards that goal. And so, I mean, obviously, the one thing that we got to do a good job of is protecting the football. But not that, like I said, that goes along a number of different lines and falls on a lot of other people also. So, you know, but just going out there and just continue to work to get better.
Will said beginning of the spring practice that the inability to run the football was a big concern last year. It has been. How much of that has hindered where you want Jake's development to be?
The inability to stay balanced, man. I mean, it just hurts any quarterback. So, I mean, you want to be able to do that to stay balanced. And so, I mean, when you could do that and they have to play both the run and the pass on each play, and I feel like, I mean, it puts any quarterback in a comfort zone. And games that we did that, I mean, were his better games, and games that we weren't. And, you know, I mean, it probably weren't his best outings.
Is there a plan for Helinski? I mean, a guy like that doesn't come in thinking about redshirting.
Sure.
Is there a plan in place for him to get snaps in games coming up?
Like I said, I think it's a long time until we have to figure that out. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's went through 7 practices. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's still tough to see exactly where he will be, even when it comes to game planning and things, and you know, grasping, going against what, and changing up looks on him. But one thing he's done a really good job up until this point. And so I feel like once we get closer to game day and even camp, I mean, we're still in the spring ball. So, I mean, we still have camp to go. We still have a summer to go, still have all those things. I still think there's a lot of time to decide that.
I don't want to hate to compare, you know, but up the road you got Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it took them many practices to realize that they had to have a plan for him. So is Helinski in that neighborhood?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a really good player. You know, he's a really good player, and so I'm sure it didn't take a lot of time for them to figure it out. You know what I mean? I'm sure we could have figured it out over here for him. But the guy, you know, the compare it, I think, is unfair to him. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's went in as a freshman and won a national championship, and right now this guy is on practice 7. So I mean, we still got a lot of time to see.
With your running backs, Bryan, would you rather prefer to have one workhorse guy that'll go out there and get 70% of the carries?
I think you got to really rely on a couple guys going into each game. I think trying to play 3 a game is way too much. It's kind of hard for a guy to get into a rhythm, and hard for a guy to kind of get into the flow of running the ball and kind of reading the defenses and feeling how people are tackling them and things like that. And so what we want to do is kind of be able to narrow it down going into the game and say, all right, man, these are the 2 guys that we're going to rely on. And you would like it to be the same 2 guys. You know, a lot of it's up to those guys and seeing who's the best 2 is going to be.
Has that maybe in the past couple of years kind of held you guys back, or has it just been injuries?
I think injuries have probably played as key of a opposition to that is anything else. You know, I mean, you feel like you might have two guys, and next thing you know, a guy's hurt and out for 2 weeks, and then now you got to, you know, throw another guy into the mix, and then throw another guy into the mix. And so, you know, being healthy is a big part of it. But I think that's also you could help that with playing multiple guys too. You know, you're taking hits off a guy, and you're able to, you know, a guy's able to take half the pounding than he would than taking the entire thing back. You know, like Cats used to do back in the day. So.
Coach Brown.
What's it been like having Coach Brown kind of in the building, a guy you obviously know really well?
Yeah, it's been good. You know, anything, you know, anytime you work with a guy, you want to make sure that he's a good man. Mm-hmm. You know, and that and he's definitely that. He's very competent and understands exactly what he tries to do, and he holds himself and his players to a really high standard. You know, both on and off the field. So, I mean, I think it's a blessing working with the guy. Obviously, I've known him. You know, I wish he could dress out and play a couple games, but you know, I don't think that's in the cards either right now. So, but you know, I'm just excited to have him here.
Are you saying Thomas Brown is better than any of your running backs?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying he was a really, really good one. You know, and I got firsthand experience of it.
He said he was very vocal about how that unit underperformed in the past. What have you been able to extract out of him, and what has he been able to extract out of that group since he's been here?
Well, you know, the thing TB does, man, he's been there. You know, he's been there. I mean, he's played in this league. He's played in the NFL. He's coached a lot of guys that went on and playing in the NFL. So he knows exactly he knows what it takes in order to the guys to perform at a high level. In practice, the habits that they need to have both on and off the field, the little intricacies of kind of playing the position. And so that's the thing that I feel like he brings to that position more so than anything else. He could say, hey guys, look, you know, I mean, this worked for me. You know, and he can give firsthand experience of it.
Bryan, looking back on it, you know, didn't score the last 6 quarters of the season.
Right.
Akron, I think there was a lot of turnovers involved. Right. But looking back at the Belk Bowl, what was the biggest glaring problem?
Well, we got our tails kicked, you know, and so I mean that's ultimately what happened. You know, lined up and then they beat us, and so I mean there's some stuff that I felt like we left out there for sure. Not negating the fact that you know that happened also, but you know the bottom line is that I mean it was no glaring thing that happened other than we were just getting beat, you know, and so when you get beat and you turn the ball over, you don't do well on offense, you know, so that's what happened.
Was it their line that was doing something to throw you guys off?
No, not so much. Not so much. I mean, you know, game plan wise, you know, it wasn't much different than we thought we were going to see. So it wasn't like they threw some different defense at us than we were ready for. I mean, it was just those guys went out there and then they performed better than we did. They coached it better than we did as far as that side of the ball, and we got to get better from it.
Do y'all take any of that and those feelings into the offseason?
It's hard not to, you know, that's for sure. It's hard not to. But, you know, the bottom line is we're not where we need to be offensively. I mean, we weren't last year. I mean, now we made improvements in a lot of areas. But we still left a lot out there and could have, you know, some of those games we scored 30, we could have scored 60. You know what I mean? Some of those games we scored, I mean, we didn't score, we could have scored 30, you know? And so, I mean, my thing is, man, no matter what, we're still a work in progress and still a long way away. And so what we better be focusing on is getting right and doing everything that we can do to get better at what we need to do. And so if we don't do that, it doesn't matter who we play. I mean, we're going to go out there and you know, you ask me questions like you just asked me.
How would you assess where your offensive line is relative to where you've been since you've been here?
I'm really pleased with it. Really pleased with the guys. You know, we're young, but I do feel like, man, we have the ability to be able to go out there and compete with a lot of places, a lot of people that we play with. So I'm pleased with those guys. We still got a long way to go when it comes to that too. But I'm pleased with it so far.
Best you've been at the position that you've been here?
I would say from top to bottom, that and the deepest. You know, that and the deepest, where you have guys where, you know, the guys can come in and you know, okay, man, you have legitimate guys who could play a number of different positions where you could always keep your best players out there. And that's the biggest thing. So, you know, I mean, if you know, you got 7 linemen, but your left guard goes down and the backup left guard isn't in the top 7, then now you're putting guy in that you necessarily don't want to be in the game at that point in time for a number of different reasons, whether he's young or whether he's, may struggle with the matchup that you have going into the week. But right now, I don't feel like we have that problem. I feel like we got a number of different guys. We could always keep our best number of players out there on the field, our best 5 out there on the field at any given time.
Competition to replace Debo.
Yeah, it's going. I don't think you can replace the guy. The biggest thing you have to do is make sure that you do everything you can do to get your playmakers the ball, and defining exactly who those guys are going to be. That's the purpose of spring. That's the purpose of camp. And we just got to do a good job of kind of making sure that we're honing those down and finding ways to get those cats the ball.
Who are some of those guys?
I'd say obviously Bryan Edwards has had a good spring. He's done a good job. Kind of asking him to do a couple more things. And he's done a good job. Shy Smith, Josh Van has had a good spring. AJ Turner, is a guy that's done good for us. But as far as guys at that position, at the receiver position, those are guys that I would say stand out the most right now. And then you got everybody else who's kind of keep coming along too. So it's still a long way away to decide exactly where that's going to go. But those are guys I would say that's probably stood out the most at that position.
AJ with the receivers?
No.
Yeah,
but just just catching the ball, just being an asset in that facet of the game.
You mentioned a couple of things for Bryan. What does he need to do to take his game to the next level?
Like I said, similar to what I said with Jake. It could be a lot. That could be a whole 30-minute conversation on anybody. But the one thing that Bryan is constantly focusing on, I think he's doing a good job of, is just being consistent in everything that he's doing. The one thing that he's played a lot of ball. He's seen a lot of stuff thrown at him as far as coverages and things like that, and just knowing how to react on the run to a lot of different things. I feel like is where he's grown the most, especially this spring. And the one thing that he has, man, he's going up against guys that are pretty good this spring. He's going up against J.C. Horn and Izzy and all those other guys, man. And those guys are challenging him, and not just him, but all the guys in my group, man. And guys are getting better because he's competing with good players.
What kind of injury progress have you seen from Ortre?
That's something that you got to ask Clinton, coach. Because I'm sure I'm a long way off. The biggest thing with Ortre, especially with that knee stuff, man, you don't want a guy that's going to come back and be too heavy and out of shape and all that stuff. So, we're really, really focusing on making sure that his body is right as possible. You come back and you too heavy on a bad knee, that's just that's not good. So we're just making sure that his body fat is right, that we're eating right, that we're doing all the cardio that he can do to make sure that when he comes back, he can kind of hit the ground running.
You mentioned
that knee, Bryan. Does he have to wear any kind of brace or anything to kind of keep it in place? Or
No,
is it good?
I think that's why we fixed it. You know what I mean? That's why we fixed it. So, right now it's fixed, so you can go out there and you can go.
You mentioned the secondary, coaching against that secondary. What have they looked like this year as opposed to last year, where it seemed like the depth was a big concern?
Yeah, I think they have a little more depth. But I think they're really. I just think they're good players. I think they're long. They got ball skills. They got quickness. They're able to stay on guys. They compete at the point of attack, at the point of catches. And so, they make you have to focus on doing it right every single play when you go up against them. So, I think even though they're young, I think they're good players, and they're definitely making us be at our best every single practice.
More so early in the season, but a little bit in the bowl game too. Drops seemed to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
What were the issues going on? How did you correct those?
Well, I don't know. The thing is, you just got to make sure when it comes to catching the ball, it's just focusing on the ball. It's as easy as it sounds. You wrap two hands around the point of the football. That's what you do. And so when you don't do that for one reason or another, then there's an issue. And so, one thing I just felt like I could do was coming down on the field from calling it. And so just being able to do that, so I felt like, it just helped those guys keep their focus where they need to be when I was right there with them. So, whether it helped or not, I don't know. But we'll see. We just got to go and, wherever I am or wherever I'm not, guys still got to focus on doing it right and doing it how it should be done every time.
Now, did you split split more time? Did offensive coordinator duties take time away from your wide receiver coach duties throughout the season, or how did that split kind of go?
No, it didn't. It didn't. One thing it does do though, when I'm out there and you actually calling the play, you kind of have to focus on calling the play and not so much the certain stuff or the minute stuff when it comes to actually coaching the actual position, because you kind of getting in the rhythm of doing it until something bad happens or something screws up or something even good happens. So, but as far as the coaching of the fundamentals and stuff like that, it's just like I've always been. It's not real different.
Do you know, looking back at last season, the up-tempo was really working well, and then pretty much at halftime of the Akron game, it's kind of like a switch getting flipped. Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, was there one thing that triggered that, or was it just a couple things that turned into a kind of a snowball?
I mean, I think, like I said, the biggest thing was turnovers. I mean, it's not like we didn't do tempo stuff after that. So, it was turnovers, and, we got to do a good job of doing it right every time. You take care of the ball and you execute, and that's the thing about offense, man. If you got 10 guys doing it right and one guy steps wrong or does it wrong, then that's a big deal. And so what we got to do is make sure that you're focusing on all that stuff. And so, the Akron game, when it all got sloppy and everything else, we started turning the ball over, and it kind of just went downhill from there. But, like I said, man, the biggest thing we got to do is just focus on all the small stuff and getting it right there. I mean, right now, and I tell this to myself, if I'm focusing on the Akron game and the Virginia game, then then we've already lost the next game. So we just got to make sure we can't let those games help lose the other games for us. And so we just got to get better, look at it, and get better from there, and kind of keep it going.
Was there one play in Virginia where you knew that it was going to be tough to get back from?
No, not so much. You just want to go in there. You want to keep swinging. You want to keep fighting until the game's over. And so, what happens is, man, when stuff doesn't go right, what happens is, man, guys start pressing. You can't allow that to happen. You just got to go out there and know there's no one play that can get you back in it or one play that can get you back out of it. You just got to go out there and just keep doing your job, down after down after down, and that wins possessions and that wins games. So you try to win downs and win possessions, so now you can win games. And so now once your focus goes from there, I think that's when you start pressing and start doing some other stuff that not necessarily need to do.
Do you have a sense when you might get Trayvon Kenyon on the field, and what is that sort of process like, rolling a guy in the middle of spring?
Yeah, that's something that goes way beyond me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like you. I'm just sitting here waiting for them to tell me exactly when he can go.
When you talk about tempo, how far along in the process did you get last year compared to where you want to be, and how much further do we need to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, as far as just the tempo of things, or how fast you want to go.
Tempo and speed on the field.
Yeah, I think like I said, half of it was when I took it over, I didn't want to completely flip and turn everything, just because it's hard. I have not seen just a first-year offense go in there and just roll up and down the field on people. And so what I wanted to do is try to keep as much as familiar as the last system that we kind of went over. So I kind of changed about, when it came up to it, I changed probably about half of the things. This year I'm, changing the other half to kind of get everything else kind of converted over to, to make it all work systematically and kind of what we do. So, to answer your question, I feel like, that'll help with the speed of things and all that other stuff. But, it all gets down to the execution and, us blocking and, throwing and catching and breaking tackles and all the other stuff.
I know Rico's been limited with an injury, but how do you keep him from putting too much pressure on himself? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to see him finally reach his full potential. Yeah,
Rico, just like the rest of those guys, got to come out there and he's got to earn it in practice. And if he don't earn it in practice, he ain't going to get it in the game, And so, we're going to play the best two guys. And if he's not in the best two, then he'll be over there standing next to me. But hopefully, and hopefully he is. And hopefully he is. But, he's got to go out there and compete and get it right in practice. And so if that doesn't happen, then, that's the rest of it. And that goes for everybody. That goes for everybody, whether it be quarterback or receiver or running back, tight end, O-line. We're going to play the guys that do it the best in practice.
Where does Kevin Harris fit in that?
I mean, the exact same thing, the exact same thing. So all those guys are getting reps, and all those guys are getting reps with a different group. So now, like I said, we can look at it and say, all right, man, this is what you did with this group, this is what you did with this group, to kind of come up with who was the most productive guy. And so now you look at the productive chart, the production chart, and say, all right, man, these are productive guys. And so now if we're gonna play the best guys, and so I feel like that's the only fair way to go about it. You know what I mean? Because if some guy's out there busting his tail and he's earning it, and somebody's over here and just shows up, and then we try to put him in, then that's not fair. That's not fair. And so it kind of everything that you talk about and everything you preach just kind of goes out the window. And so I mean, we don't want that to happen.
Are you frustrated with Rico? Are you frustrated that Rico's not on the practice field?
No, I mean, if a guy's hurt, if a guy's hurt, he's hurt. We kind of can't do that. But what I can't do is just sit up here and say, okay, he's going to come back in off being hurt and going out there and doing it. If there are guys that are out there doing a good job of earning playing time, and so so what we need to do with him is focus on getting him back so we can go out there and compete in practice to earn it just like everybody else.
How often, if at all, do you reference or show the Clemson film with your guys as an illustration of this is what we would like for it to look like, and it can look like this?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I mean, just because, there's the good, the bad in every game, even the bowl game, even though it's. I think we went out there and we executed and did things right. I think guys executed the game plan. Did a good job of getting guys in the right spots and got a chance to take advantage of certain things that we saw that we could take advantage of. And so, but it's no different than that and some of the other games that we didn't do it, and so we just got to do a good job of doing that and putting games like that together. That'll make me happy.
You spoke about being on the sidelines. How much did that help midway point of the season?
It helped in certain aspects, and other ones you just can't see the game as well. Obviously, you're up there in the box, so you really have to do a good job of trusting all the information that you're getting from guys that's up there in the box. Which we have guys up there, man, that do a good job of feeding it to me. But it's all secondhand. You know what I mean? So you were able to see it. Okay, all right, this is kind of what they're doing to stop it. So now I kind of know what I'm going through instead of having to hear it and everything else, because you can only really see so much down there. You just can't see it as good. So, but when it came to talking and communicating and everything like that, it really helped. Just communicating as far as, if you're changing something right there, you didn't have to wait to get the guy on the phone or put a guy on the headset or something like that. So it just helped with the communication part of it.
With the staff shift, how will that change next year?
It won't change. It won't change much. I think, we got a couple guys that I want to see. I just don't want to say right now to where it changes and it's wrong. You know what I'm saying? But it's really, we're really just losing one guy from the, we're really just losing one guy that was up there. So it's just really replacing him and kind of seeing how that fits out.
Shai took a pretty big jump last year. What do you feel like is the next sort of step for his game?
Just we got to keep going. We got to keep going. I mean, he still has a long way to go. To reach all the potential that he might have. So he's just got to go out there and keep putting good days together. And right now he's done that. So we just got to keep it going in that regard.
Another kind of way back question, since we don't get to talk to you very often, but what gave you the confidence in Jake Bentley to keep him in there, even after watching Scar against Missouri? What made you want to stick with him at that time?
Well, it was a number of different things, but the one thing is that he had seen a lot of the stuff that we're about to see. And so when you go into it, man, you got a guy that's got the cumulative reps of kind of knowing what to do and knowing how to do it. And obviously, man, he came back after that and played pretty decent for the most part. And like I said, man, the biggest thing is that we can't do is, that I felt like Jake did at times just this past season was just, just can't press. Can't feel like, hey, man, I got to do this. Take what they give you, you know what you see and play with what you see and go from there. And that's the biggest jump I've seen him take. But we still got to make sure we keep doing a good job there.
There were some precarious moments for him though when he came back. How close did you get to pulling him?
Well, like I said, that's a question that, I don't know. I mean, every game kind of goes up and down. But I mean, it's not just me. It's a staff decision. You know, I mean, it starts with Coach Muschamp, and you know, we kind of get his input, whether it be before the series or before the game, or you know, even during the series, and kind of go from there. And not saying that that's kind of what stopped it or started it, but you know, I mean, it's a lot more than me. You know, it's a lot more than me just saying, hey man, this is kind of what we need to do, and kind of going from there. So there's a lot more that goes into it also.
Did that conversation happen during the game?
Not that I remember, that we weren't ready for. You know what I'm saying? You know, not and it was a lot more based really just off of the injury. You know what I mean? Just saying, hey man, how's he feeling?
But
more
after
so
they
than
came
that.
back, y'all
Yeah,
started that
no.
conversation
I
in
mean, not during the game. Not during the game.
What has Chad Terrell showed you kind of coming off that knee injury?
Well, he's had a pretty good spring. You know, he's come out, and what you got to do is kind of throw caution into the wind. That's what I tell him when you're coming off injuries, man. You know, and so the biggest thing about injuries is getting over it mentally. Doing a good job of just, you know, kind of saying, hey, man, you know, it's different than going out there running around and jogging and cutting when nobody's around you, but you got people falling around your leg or foot or whatever it might happen. And so just going out there and throwing caution to the wind and just going out there to work. And that's where I'm really proud that he's been able to do is just go out there and just kind of work like nothing's happened. You know, go out there and work like nothing happened. Like I said, man, it's fixed. You don't need a brace. You don't need anything. Let's go out there and let's go. And he's done a good job of it.
From the decision-making standpoint, going back to that, you have a more defensive-minded head coach with Coach Muschamp. How much more impact does, say, your input have just because of the fact that you are the offensive coordinator? And then how much do you think you can influence a certain decision of the nature, such as a quarterback switch?
Oh, man, that's something that you got to ask Coach Muschamp. You know what I mean? I wish I could live in that brain sometimes, but I don't. You know, so I mean, I feel like that's a question that you really got to ask him. And so I mean, and kind of go from there. Now he'll ask me what I feel, and I tell him, and you know, ultimately the decision is on whatever it might be. You know, whether it be quarterback or whether it be, you know, taking the ball or kicking it or whatever it is. Or, you know, so I mean, that's something that you got to ask him.
To be clear, do you plan to call from the field again this year? Up in the box?
Right now, I plan on calling it from the field. Yeah, plan on staying on the field.
How has Bobby been with tight ends?
He's done a good job. You know, Coach Bentley, man, he's just, you know, he's a good ball coach. You know, he's coached everything really before. I mean, the guy starting at the level that he started up, man, you kind of had to coach everything. And so, I mean, there's not a position out there that he would feel uncomfortable with coaching anyway. So he's done a good job. You know, he's really detail oriented. Does a good job of helping the kids understand, you know, all the small stuff and how it impacts the big picture. And he's done that with the tight ends.
Does anything change with the tight end room given you lost 2 seniors? How do you feel about that group overall?
Well, no, not as of right now. No, as of right now, no.
Is there anything about Hilinski that surprised you?
You know, the one thing that you really don't know is when you get a quarterback in is just how, you know what I mean, how brave he is. You know what I mean? When you're standing in the pocket and kind of having to deal with all the stuff and you're dealing with people around there and you just don't know. I mean, you got a good feeling, but you just don't know for sure. And that's one of the biggest things that I've been most impressed with. I mean, he hadn't flinched. You know what I mean? He hadn't flinched. They go in there and they send stuff at him and he's making the right checks and doing the right things and just he hadn't flinched. So that's probably been the biggest thing that I've been really, really impressed with him about.
Will y'all make the quarterbacks not named Jake live for the spring game or at any point this spring, or is that?
I don't know. I don't know that yet. And a lot of it that is not just up to the quarterback or whether they can handle it. But I do think it's important for those guys to feel a live rush and know and really actually have to play football, and know that the consequences of not making the right checks or the consequences of not getting the ball out their hand at times, especially for the young guys who kind of haven't been in ball games and hadn't taken many live reps. But you know, some of that stuff, I mean, you know, you got guys that you're shuffling around on the line of scrimmage too that are going against good guys. So, I mean, you know, that's the stuff that you kind of have to factor in it too a little bit. You know what I mean? Is a guy going to be scrambling every time he drops back because, you know what I mean, you know, you're not as good at the line of scrimmage in certain groups than you would be. So I think a lot of stuff has to go in consideration when it comes to that.
To that end, you know, you can simulate so much, but for a guy like Ryan, what can't you simulate that you won't see until he takes the field in the real game?
Well, I think, you know, that just making those decisions and everything else, and that's why you try to put as much pressure on them as you can in all these situations. You know what I mean? There's having direct consequences to it, because you wanna simulate what it's gonna be like to play in a game. You know, but for us to play in the SEC game on the road, you know what I mean, and it's third down and you got to have it. I mean, that's what you got to try to simulate, and obviously there's nothing that can do it to that point. But just putting as much pressure on those guys as you can. So, I mean, it's still a lot. To answer your question, there's a lot that you can't do. I mean, the game reps are completely different than anything else. That's why you just try to make sure you beat as many good habits into people as you can.
What is sort of the message that you give some of kind of the older receivers you have who maybe, they're working behind Bryan, they're working behind Shai. What is sort of the message to Rendricus, to Chavis, as they're kind of going through, maybe the second half of their careers?
Yeah, I mean, and those guys have had good springs too. I mean, they really have. I mean, they've progressed a long way. I mean, obviously, man, Drake coming off all the injuries and everything else that he has, and for him to be able to kind of take those steps to get back and have the spring he's been having has been encouraging too. And then, but those guys, they understand how it works. I mean, we're going to play 6 to 7 guys in a game at the receiver position. And if you're not in that 6 to 7, then it's up to you. And so, just like I said, when it comes to any position, I mean, those guys got to go out there and they got to earn it in practice. And, I mean, the bottom line is I can know how much you want to play. I can know everything else, but this isn't the YMCA. Everybody doesn't play, you know what I mean? And so you're going to get what you earn, and you are what you see on film, and that's that simple. So don't tell me you want to play, and if the guy on film isn't as good as the other guys, I mean, that's the fairest way to be. And so those guys know and understand that. They know and understand that, and they know and understand that how important it is to be at their best every single day. Because, like I said, man, you are what you see on film. I tell them, man, performance is the only language that I understand when it comes to playing time, and that's it.
You signed Kevion Mullins. Mm-hmm. What did you see from him at receiver in the recruiting process?
I got a chance to work with him in camp and see the different things that he could do. A guy that, in that body, to have the initial quickness and have the ball, have the catch radius and the ball skills that he has, and the ability to accelerate for a big guy. I mean, it's just, there's not many people have it. So, and not just that, man, I think he's good after the catch. I think he's a tough kid. I think he's a kid that really likes football. So that was the biggest thing that excited me when I got a chance to work with him at camp.
And with Xavier, you guys signed him as well. I know he played all over the place.
Yep.
Is he going to funnel in at receiver?
Yep, he's a receiver.
What did you see?
I had a chance to work with him in camp too. So I got a chance to see a lot of the same stuff. But he is a really good athlete. A guy, man, is coming in, and because he had to play so much, he's not really, not really oriented in kind of how to do everything at the receiver position, which is really what I like. He's kind of like a blank canvas, so everything that he kind of knows, I get a chance to teach him. So I'm excited about that.
How much did you see from Taekwon in his post-grad year?
So it was really the same. You know what I mean? I think it's it's just kind of the stuff he's going through is the stuff he's going through. So I hope it works out where he can get in. But him and Xavier really similar when it came to that. You know what I mean? But Ty, man, he's a guy that's a really good athlete. I mean, he's a big, long, fast guy. Got a chance to. I mean, he can go up and catch it with the best of them. So I'm excited about the ability that he has. But same thing. I mean, just he's similar to a blank canvas where I can kind of go in and teach him all he knows, which that's exciting.
DeCarrion's obviously a quarterback, but if you wanted to look into another role, do you see him being able to fit in another spot?
I don't know. I mean, right now we just want him to be the best quarterback he could be. So I mean, if he got to that point, then maybe. I mean, he has the tools to do different things. But right now, we just want him to be the best quarterback he could be.